is Luna Fleming, and I am a 19-year-old student from Cork, and I'm going to be talking about my story of suffering with an eating disorder through my teenage years. According to the Irish Legal Aid Board, medical negligence can be defined as any action by medical staff or members of hospitals/clinic staffs which fall below an acceptable standard of care, or which directly causes injury or disease or allows the health of a person to deteriorate as a result. Well, if that definition doesn't describe my entire experience with health professionals during my eating disorder journey, I don't know what else does. This is exactly what I've heard from friends who've struggled themselves or known someone to struggle with an eating disorder, some of which you will also hear from today. I've always been overweight and viewed by society as fat, and lesser as an individual because of this. My eating disorder began when I was 12 years old, after years of bullying and being told by doctors to lose weight. I'd been able to handle the judgment up until this point, but by now I'd started to lose all my self-esteem, as at this time in my life, I was being groomed and sexually abused online. I also had struggled my whole life with the effects of being an undiagnosed autistic person. Studies have suggested that 20 to 30% of people with eating disorders meet the criteria for ASD versus 1% of the overall population. So essentially, I was a perfect cocktail of vulnerability for an eating disorder to latch on to. I tried to lose weight in some sort of healthy way, though I had no idea what I was doing, but I would usually give up pretty quickly in frustration. Then at one point in first year, I was so anxious because of what was happening in my life that I was physically sick for several days, meaning I only ate a very small amount. I saw how much my weight dropped, and from that point I was hooked. I started running every day, restricting and tracking my calories, and joined online communities who were supportive of this behaviour and encouraged me to continue it. Within a few months, all I could think about was food, calories, weights, exercises, being thin, and so on. To waste time when I wasn't allowing myself to eat, I would either exercise or do endless research on low-calorie foods, exercise routines, diets, and look at pictures upon pictures of incredibly skinny individuals. For years, I bounced between cycles where this would be my day-to-day for months at a time and being normal for a while. Even when I went months eating as normally as possible, I still was thinking about it day in and day out. The guilt never seems to disappear even when you seem better. During my teenage years, I also suffered with depression, anxiety, and the effects of undiagnosed autism. I couldn't get enough support for any of these issues, so in 5th year caused me to have to drop out of secondary school. At that time, I did not want to live, so it was impossible to want to eat a healthy amount. Around the same time as leaving school, I opened up to a therapist about my eating issues and my traumatic past. This was incredibly hard for me to do, as it is something I had to fight for years to keep secret. An eating disorder is one of the only illnesses that convinces you that you are better with the illness than without, and that you cannot live without it. This is why it is so hard for me and others to tell people about their eating disorders and to get help, and why it took me so long. My therapist at the time referred me to CAMHS, and I was on the luckier end of waiting times, and got seen within 2 months. I was assessed and started attending general therapy, while I was put on a waiting list for CARES, the Cork Public Eating Disorder team. Unfortunately, by the time I was called to be seen by CARES, I was a few weeks off being 18, so I could not see them. I was on that waiting list for 10 months. I was referred to General Adult Services when I turned 18, and I found these to be even worse than CAMHS. I was seen by a psychiatrist in General Adult Services once every few months. They would ask the same repetitive questions and hardly listen to the answers each time. I was on a waiting list for general therapy for 9 months. When I received it, I discovered I could only use a maximum of 6 sessions, so I found it impossible to form a therapeutic relationship with the therapist. Last summer, my eating disorder reached a critical point. It had relapsed with my restrictive behaviours having worsened, but also I developed bulimic tendencies. I was miserable, weak and tired all the time. I tried to speak to my psychiatrist about what I could do. He basically gave me no options, so I did my own research and contacted a private inpatient facility that takes a lot of publicly funded patients. I came back to my next psychiatric appointment with the information I'd been given. I was told it would be discussed. And my next appointment after that was weighed by the nurse before being called into my appointment. When I was called in, I was told the facility I was interested in would not be suitable for someone with binge eating disorder. I had never mentioned any traits of binge eating disorder. The only assumption I can make is the psychiatrist wasn't keeping notes on my eating disorder. Guess what it was based on an assumption due to my weight. I was also told it wasn't like I was a very thin anorexic or anything. I was in awe with the lack of empathy and competency. So to summarise my history of eating disorder treatment, I've never received any, not any, in 7 years since I first developed the illness. My main personal hope for the improvement of treatment of people with eating disorders through fair and equal treatment for all people with eating disorders of all weights and types, including inpatient and outpatient treatment that caters to the needs of anyone who requires it.